Hey there, hope you're well. So, what is the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum? Well, Bitcoin is the OG crypto, the original one, the first one. It was intended to be a new form of money, which it has become. Obviously, hasn't overtaken the US dollar and other fiat currencies. Fiat meaning not linked to gold anymore and therefore liable to be abused, which is happening by governments and central banks, of course. But look, in the end, Bitcoin, although it is a new form of money, it was originally intended for microtransactions and any kind of transaction, but in the end it's only good for big transactions because it's kind of evolved to be basically seen as a great store of wealth, a kind of better than gold, a digital version of gold. And it's gone from strength to strength. It has, over the last 4 years, I think, an average annualized return of 30% as the adoption increases. That's obviously why a lot of people are attracted to it, quite apart from the basic use case that it's a great store of wealth and a new form of money. Now, it's number one, it always has been in terms of the list of cryptos, and I think it will always remain there. Now, let's move on to Ethereum. Ethereum is number two. And if you look at a lot of the other coins that are in the top 10, like Ethereum, many of them are these kind of what you would call smart contract type chains. So they have a totally different purpose. They're not intended to be a store of value. They're intended to be for decentralized applications, and the way that all works is because intrinsically they run smart contracts. So there's something inside Ethereum called the Ethereum virtual machine. It just means that if you're a programmer, you can write a program and you can get the tokens on Ethereum to automatically perform some kind of logic operation in a programmatic way, in a way that you describe exactly how you want it to happen. And basically what this has enabled a number of use cases, but more than anything else, it has really enabled something called DeFi, which is decentralized finance. Essentially, finance, when it boils down to it, is borrowing and lending. And you can have now automatic finance, automatic borrowing and lending without having to go to a bank, without having to speak to someone, without a human being doing some sort of manual operation. It can all be taken care of in the smart contract logic. So this is not only insane, it's just incredibly amazing. What else are there differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum? Well, they both use what's known as a different consensus mechanism. So this is when you want to send coin from one account to another, it has to be confirmed in the network, and part of that is a consensus mechanism. You end up with more confirmations throughout the network as the different nodes or servers or whatever agree that this transaction is true. So originally both of them use something called proof of work. You may have heard that proof of work is quite intensive. You need to have a graphic processor. It uses a lot of energy. This is also a cause for a lot of complaint when people say, oh, crypto uses too much energy and this type of thing. I mean, to be honest, for Bitcoin, there's no desire to move away from proof of work. The fact you need a lot of energy just to confirm a transaction is a good thing. It means that if someone wants to attack the network, they have to spend a lot of money. They have to expend a lot of energy. So Bitcoin remains as proof of work, but Ethereum moved away. It moved to something called proof of stake. Now, Bitcoin people argue that it's actually made Ethereum more centralized as a result. So that's an argument for another day. I want to move on and also explain some other differences as well. The transaction speed is kind of different. Every confirmation in Bitcoin takes about 10 minutes, and you need really about 3 confirmations for finality to be totally assured, and that's therefore about half an hour. Now in Ethereum it takes 15 seconds for each confirmation, but to get finality you need more than 3. But still, overall, if you're looking for finality, it is a lot less than it is for Bitcoin. So that's also a difference. You don't have to wait around, but it's not as strong a store of wealth. So even though people consider finality to be over more quickly with Ethereum, just bear in mind it's just not considered as strong. There is a supply limit for Bitcoin. It's fixed at 21 million coins that will ever be mined, that will never go up unless the community somehow agrees to increase the supply, but extremely doubtful because people like the fact that there's a fixed supply. With Ethereum, it's a bit different. So the supply can change. It is, to be honest, it is more or less stable. There are various inflationary factors. There are various deflationary factors. But it's not volatile. It's kind of, it's more or less stable, let's say. As I mentioned already, Ethereum supports smart contracts and decentralized applications. That is the essence of what it is. Now, Bitcoin doesn't natively support that. It never did. There is talk about it possibly supporting that in future. So some people have a vision that Bitcoin, there's two camps, right? Some people say leave Bitcoin the way it is. It does what it does amazingly well. It doesn't need to be upgraded. It doesn't need all these extra features. Leave it. Let other coins take up that slack. Let Ethereum have its day with DeFi and dApps, and don't try and get involved there. However, there are other people who say we should modify Bitcoin, right? We should enable it for microtransactions. There is the Lightning Network that came about because of that. We should allow it to have something similar to NFTs. We should allow it to have smart contracts and dApps. So there is kind of development work there that some people want to do. Most people are against it though. I mentioned the energy efficiency already, that proof of work is less energy. It's energy intensive actually, but that's a good thing. It protects it. In terms of some of the nicknames or the roles, I've given you a flavor. People call Bitcoin digital gold. What do people call it? Ethereum? People used to call it digital silver, although to be honest, a lot of people call Litecoin digital silver because it's like a smaller brother of Bitcoin. It's not used as much, doesn't scale as well, but it has way lower fees, and it keeps its value pretty well too. People these days call Ethereum digital oil or digital fuel, because if you see, it sort of enables, it powers decentralized finance. It powers all these other advanced use cases. In terms of age, Bitcoin is about 15 years old, and Ethereum is about 10 or so. It's coming up to 10 years old, so that gives you an idea. But I hope this gave you a pretty decent idea of the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. They're highly different, and the problem with Ethereum is that it may get overtaken by another coin. Right now it's way out ahead, but a lot of questions are being asked about its leadership. I think because of its dominant position, it was always very slow to make changes. It was always like, look, we want to be very stable. We want a lot of confidence in Ethereum, and therefore we're never going to be reactive, overreactive, too quickly reactive. We'll do things, any enhancements, we'll take our time to get them right so that we don't have to, roll them back because we made mistakes. The problem with that attitude, and I do think it's good, but the problem is we live in a capitalist society, a market-driven society, and there are other coins that are also smart contract chains that see that and say, well, we're going to go faster. We're going to go faster and harder, and we're not going to go slowly. And that's why Solana has done really well. And people used to laugh at Solana and say, oh, you're too quick, your network breaks every now and again. And then they had, the thing about the meme coin thing now is, meme coins are worthless, okay? But meme coins have proven that they can help accelerate interest and development in a chain. And now Solana is a pretender to the throne. It can potentially take over from Ethereum one day, whereas nobody would have thought that even like 3 years ago. Now you have other chains like Sui, which apparently was created by ex-Meta engineers or something like that. From the ground up, they've tried to learn from the mistakes of what the other ones have done. It's a bit like the cloud game. AWS was the first to get into the cloud, and then you had Azure from Microsoft, and you had Google Cloud Platform, which was able to sit back and look at AWS and say, well, we're going to learn from all the mistakes that you've made. We're going to try and design it from the ground up better than you. This is basically what Sui and what some other chains are doing now. Because once you get going, you can't really, you can't change your fundamentals. That's almost impossible. So we'll be very interested to see what happens. And therefore, there's a lot of price pressure on Ethereum. In the last year, in dollar value, Bitcoin is like about 30% up or thereabouts. Whereas if you were to look at Ethereum is down by about 40%. So yeah, really not looking so good. So anyway, I hope that gives you some idea of the differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment, ask me a question, give me a like if you enjoyed this, and I will speak to you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.